So we're going to be using the bottoms-up method to do this. If you happen to have more than one type of writing utensil, so maybe like a highlighter or a pen and pencil, that may help to identify some parts. So I'm going to start by circling the 3 and the positive 8. I'm going to multiply these two numbers. 3 times positive 8 is 24. Now I'm going to put a box around the positive 10, which is the middle term in this trinomial. I want to come up with a combination that is going to multiply to give us 24 and combines to give us 10. You don't have to write down all the combinations, but I'm going to write them down so you can understand my thought process. So 1 and 24 do not somehow give you 10. 2 and 12. 2 and 12, the only way to get a positive 10 would be as if this was negative 2 and positive 12, but that does not get an answer of positive 24. 3 and 8 does not work. 4 and 6 does work. So I get to write down x plus 4 and x plus 6 because positive 4 combined with positive 6 is a positive 10, and they multiply to give you a 24. When the number in front that is referred to as the leading coefficient, when this number is anything other than 1, we put it underneath both. We're going to do the bottoms-up method. And then we go through and we ask, can we reduce the fraction? So 4/3 can't be reduced, but 6/3 does reduce to 2. If the number reduces to an integer, you're great. After you've attempted to reduce it, if it's still a fraction, we do bottoms up. That means the bottom number gets pushed up and in front. Your final answer for here would be 3x plus 4 times x plus 2. Okay, the next one. Circle the negative 3 and circle the positive 8. Negative 3 and positive 8. They multiply. Negative 3 times positive 8 is negative 24. Put a box around the negative 10. So you don't have to write down the combinations again, but I want students to understand where this is coming from. So 1 and 24 does not give you negative 10. 2 and 12 does work. The 2 would have to be positive, the 12 would have to be negative. X plus 2 and x minus 12. They combine to equal negative 10. They multiply to equal negative 24. Then I'm going to take this negative 3, since the leading coefficient is not a 1, I need to do bottoms up. I'm going to place the negative 3 underneath both numbers. And first I'm going to reduce so I don't have two symbols here. I know a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. 2/3 does not reduce any further. 12/3 reduces to 4. Now if after it reducing you have an integer, you don't need to worry about bottoms up, but this cannot be reduced to an integer, so bottoms gets pushed up. 3x minus 2 times x plus 4. Okay, go on to example number 3. Now as we get into some problems that seem a little bit harder, it's important to first ask yourself, can you first multiply a monomial out? So is there a number other than 1 that divides nicely into 9, 12, and 4? There is not. There's not a number that nicely other than 1 that divides into 9, 12, and 4. So I can't factor anything out. So let's circle the 9 and circle the positive 4. 9 times positive 4 is positive 36. And now combinations that will equal 12. 1 and 36 don't work. 2 and 18 don't give you 12. 3 and 12, no. 4 and 9, close. That's 13, not 12. 6 and 6 work. What would have to be the symbols on the 6 to get a positive 12? They both would have to be positive. So x plus 6 and x plus 6. Because the leading coefficient is different than a 1, I need to put the 9s underneath both. Now 6 divided by 9, you can use a calculator or know that 3 divides into both. 6 divided by 3 is 2, 9 divided by 3 is 3. We reduced, but we don't have an integer, so I'm going to do bottoms up. 3x plus 2, 3x plus 2. And you've learned that when you have the same quantity written more than one time, we can use an exponent. So in this case, we're going to say this is equal to 3x plus 2 quantity squared. Example number 4. There is no number other than 1 that I can divide out of each one of these terms. So I'm going to circle the 2 and the negative 12. 2 and negative 12. 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. I want to come up with a combination that multiplies to give you negative 24 and combines to give you 5. So 1 and 24, no. You don't need to write all these combinations down again. I'm doing it so other people can visualize. 2 and 12 does not work. 3 and 8 does work. The symbol on the 3 would need to be negative, and on the 8 would need to be a positive in order for them to combine to give you a positive 5. X minus 3 and x plus 8. They multiply to give you negative 24, combine to give you a positive 5. Now, because the leading coefficient is different than a 1, I put a 2 underneath both the negative 3 and the 8. Three over 2 cannot be reduced. 8 over 2 reduces to a positive 4. When we say reduces, I should really be using the word simplifies. Reduce means to make something smaller if you reduce something in size. So I should be using the word simplify. It simplifies to equal 4. Okay, now because this is not an integer, I'm going to push the 2 up, and I have 2x minus 3 times the quantity x plus 4. I know you learned this in 8th, 9th grade, but some people this is a hard thing to understand. 1 through 5, your level of understanding, 1 through 5. Most people are 3 or above. Okay, flip to the next page. Crossing out the y equals, please, and for examples 5 and 6, cross out the y equals in front. Now, in this particular problem, we see an expression in which I can divide by a 3. So let's divide a 3 out of each of the terms. Inside would be 6x squared minus 5x minus 4. Okay, now within this portion, that's all I'm concerned with. The 3, don't even worry about it to the very end. So within this portion, I'm going to circle the 6 and the negative 4. A combination that multiplies to equal negative 24 and combines to equal negative 5. 1 and 24 does not combine to give you somehow negative 5. 2 and 12, no. 3 and 8 does work. If it was going to work, the 3 must be positive and the 8 would be negative. So this would be x plus 3 and x minus 8. When we think about bottoms up, we always go back to this smaller trinomial that I'm directly working with. So 6 is different than 1, and now goes underneath the 3 and the 8. I'm going to reduce those fractions first. So 3 over 6 does not reduce to 2. Oh, I'm using the word reduce again. It does not simplify to 2. It simplifies to 1/2. And 8 over 6 simplifies to a negative 4/3. After you've simplified, you're going to push up the 2 and push up the 3. 2x plus 1, 3x minus 4, and don't forget to bring the 3 down from up above. Two problems left. Here's your next one. 8, 46, and 30 are all even. The largest number I can divide out is a 2, but I would like to work with, I don't want to work with a negative leading coefficient. So let's divide a negative 2 out. So when I divide a negative 2, I end up with 4x squared. Subtract 23x plus 15. Okay? Now circle the 4 and the 15. Four times 15 is 60. Combinations that multiply to give you a positive 60 and combine to give you a negative 23. 1 and 60, no. 2 and 30, no. 3 and 20 does work. It would need to be a negative 3 and a negative 20. The bottoms up would be taking this 4, not the original negative 8. It's the direct trinomial we're working with. So I take a 4 and I put it underneath the 3 and the 20. Go ahead and reduce those fractions if possible. 4 divided by, please don't talk right now. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And now I've reduced. If it's not an integer, we need to do bottoms up. 4x minus 3, x minus 5. Bring down the negative 2. Okay. Our last problem, let's figure out what number I can factor out here. So I have a 24, 22, and a 10. The largest number I can factor out would be a 2. 12x squared minus 11x minus 5. Circling the 12 and the negative 5. 12 times negative 5 is negative 60. What numbers multiply to give you negative 60 and combine to give you negative 11? 1 and 60, no. 2 and 30, no. 3 and 20, no, we're getting closer. 4 and 15 would combine to give you a negative 11 if the x had a positive 4, and then the next one would be an x minus 15. Because 4 and negative 15 combines for negative 11 and multiplies for negative 60. Bottoms up, put a 12 underneath both, and go ahead and reduce each fraction. After you've reduced the fractions, if they are not integers, you're going to do, I said reduce. After you've simplified the fractions, you are going to do bottoms up, pushing up the 3 and 4. 3x plus 1 and 4x minus 5. Don't forget to bring the original 2 down.